Now I'm going to read this. This is a writing that has to do with my own personal experiences. Like the people from the 20s or 1920s or 40s or 50s that they did not either, or I don't know how to say, have any stamps calling them experts on the area. They wrote down their own personal experiences for some kind of secret society thing. There are and have been secret societies, but it's not a secret. It is not to be that it's for some people's gain to kill people and to be against some people, as if there are human beings who are specially chosen, and other people, then it's me, you are the chosen one. Right? There's a book saying that. Well, I think that every person, every being, every individual has the right to exist as long as you do not harass other people, trying to destroy other people's flow, destroying their lives. When I use the word you in this, it is like early on they used the word one, as you, as one should do this, and one when one applies to attend university, now it's when you fill out the form and then that's how the word is to be understood in this context. I'm not talking to a specific you. There's not someone who is you, a group of people that are you. It is the term for, like, it's like one, or like you do this and that. And this is my own personal experiences, how I view things. From my, in the space, inside the layers surrounding our exogenous reality, our individual existences are imprinted into that space. When we decide as individuals to gain control of our own existences, it temporarily has an effect on the imprint of possibilities or the lack of such, clearing out the internalized enemies temporarily, making the inner enemies manifest in the external, outside the body and brain. Depending on the negative powers of the self-sabotage, enemies, the external enemies will manifest equally negatively powerful, and is then to defeat as the influence on yourself. A change on the inside, like the Newtonian law, has an effect, cause and effect on the outside. The change on the inside changes reality, and the advantage is the inner control that frees the restraint power to overcome obstacles that used to be internalized in the super-ego, and thereby above the ego, and it having the power to control, which after the clearing out is conquered and reclaimed by the individual, by your own self-being. During the process, you teach yourself to master the ego and you being in relation to the external reality, including the enemies, which you know every aspect of and thereby easily know how to deal with, and which cannot defeat your ego and whole being as the enemies, as represented by the external enemy, used to be internalized, keeping the potential of being crippled. Everything familiar in its nature with the stuck potential will likewise sense the resistance, the enemies that are known to them, and fight the enemy to free their stuck potential. It functions like a domino effect. The enemy might confuse the process, as they might not view themselves as the enemy. The task is to have the distinct angles exist simultaneously without being in warfare against each other, without the contradicting points of view fighting each other, to understand that there is space enough for everyone individually, and to create space in a rearranging reality is a process that takes time and hard work. when what was subtle attacks during the process turns into direct attacks that can actually be dealt with through using your intellect, um, uh, uh, um, because direct attacks are what we refer to as real, not what is referred to as an illness, a delusion, psychological violence that is masked and thereby so difficult to explain and understand that it seems to be in the mind of the person under attack. Either the attacks are intentional or maybe they are the subtle manifestation of the enemy before becoming real enemies that can be handled. It might cause fear because of a lack of understanding and for reasons of convenient organization of reality. When the enemy tries to repossess, it's under your possession. Everything you possess is under your control. When the enemy is gradually defeated as a representation of the internalized enemy, which makes the individual having to reveal aspects of being, that creates a lot of discomfort because it is like sailing unknown seas, exploring unknown areas, resulting in being perceived differently by the surroundings, which might fuel the enemy temporarily. When the process has been initialized, there is no turning back to the no longer convenience of the past organization of reality. Internally and externally, agreeing to disagree is an unavoidable part of the transformed reality. Depending on which historical events or characters the repression of self-ego externalized resembles to a similar extent through those shadow in a Jungian understanding of the word, will the resistance manifest itself, seeming irrelevant to the present historical time period out of context, but with the potential to free potential at a larger scale, stuck in history, being since those historical times repressed by convenient organization of reality. To be aware of archetypes culturally and historically is a great advantage during the reclaiming of your life, knowing which archetypal traps exist that can affect the view on your being seen from outside, either in or unintentionally. Archetypes can also be used to the reclaimer's benefit to attempt to influence the perception on your existence, the way you seem to be interpreted in the eyes of bypassers. During the process that is unavoidable for great change to take place, it is to your own benefit to be generous to people, to help when it is needed, because the Ten Commandments influence the way actions are replayed. Not repaid in the longer run. If the generosity can become a part of your being, knowing that your fellow beings are created equally, which everyone is, and that a chain reaction in a cause-effect way of thinking will begin, which acts like a boomerang effect. Spells can be broken also through forgiveness, if there is ever reason to do so, in order to maintain the unbalanced reality, no matter how harmful it is to their beings. You get to understand the amount of negative influences having kept you from using It might seem there is a reason to turn back because of opposition, since the opposition are of a rigid nature, refusing to change, acknowledging the internalized resistance, uh, instead identifying with the internalized nature of the opposition they represent, finding it convenient to project onto a seemingly lesser external enemy. During the process, the walls might attempt to cave in, and depending on the force of the enemy, uh, hvad fanden er der nogen, der klipper noget? Det er så træls, jeg har lige været ved at sidde og læse den fucking underligt. During the process, the walls might attempt to cave in, and depending on the force of the caving in, the effect on your being and thereby the reaction will manifest. The art form is to create space for your existence and what needs space within the space. The process takes control, self-control, not to let the external enemy sabotage your life like it used to do internally as the super-ego. People who are repressed are often almost always expected to be likable in the eyes of everybody, which, if you live freely and according to your own beliefs, values, and rights, is impossible without living with an amount of compromises that are not usually expected of people to live with. Therefore, the reality also changes in a way that makes the individual reclaiming life not likable to everybody, which makes it even more important to make choices in relation to social life, events to participate in, how to be and be allowed to be at the same premises as everybody, apart from yourself. Setting boundaries, having them respected. People you thought were friends might turn into enemies, playing games trying to gain control of you, trying to maintain the position they got from the blocking of your potential. And people might even make up stories. No. Whatever changed the situation, something, someone touched you emotionally, where you had been understimulated, deserted, unrecognized for so long, you forgot love existed anymore. Strangers will recognize you in various ways as the archetypal mother, father, the evil witch, the irresponsible royalty, the one in charge, the one to blame, the role model, the one to identify with, the one to envy, to resent, the one they try to categorize and to put fit into the old outdated order, is scared of losing control, like times of unexplained natural phenomena, of trolls, witches, storms, hurricanes, the unknown, non-categorized, denying to trust in the natural order of things, that in its nature is not evil. Nature just denies to be under anybody's control. And you never talk about evil storms or other natural phenomena because nature is, without being forced, to stop howling or pouring. The change has to do with freeing stagnated potential, what you felt obliged to keep hidden or did not use, and thereby it went into a coma-like state. Somehow you died in the memory of acquaintances, or they chose to attempt to recreate, reinvent an image of you for their own benefit, to ignore parts of you they might have chosen to identify with as themselves, maybe unintentionally, maybe intentionally, depending on how they embrace and praise your resurrection or attempt to keep identifying with you, shutting you down, ignoring your emotions and situation. You will definitely know. You will know yourself for this process to happen, which means you can easily distinguish between yourself and your surroundings. You know or get to know that evil can be used for good purposes, that the evil and its practice is a matter of circumstance, that some circumstances are so cruel that soldiers and guns might be needed and justified for injustice to be fought against. The black slaves rebelled against repression, refugees against racism. Black women wanted equality in relation to white supremacy. The white women were forgotten. The white beige woman was initially kept repressed, waiting for her turn to rebel against male supremacy. Women are often viewed as not being able to compete with men because of their gender. The view on women as inferior because their bodies bear life and breastfeed, which contradicts the power of creation. No. Which contradicts the power of human. Så nu hold op med det for satan. Which contradicts the power human. Which contradicts the power of creation, being the power of God, a seed planted by the man in the woman's womb, which is then a cooperation between the divine power of creation and the woman. The man has good reasons to envy the deep connection between the woman and the power of creation. The body of the woman is a bearer of fertility, of creative powers beyond the comprehension of the man's body and brain. The view on a woman as inferior, as sex symbols, is primitive. Så skal jeg til at sidde og finde det. An outdated view on the woman as inferior because of examination. That you have to live with, people who listen to this, live with, or look apart from us. I have to look for the papers because some of them are ripped out and then put somewhere else. And I thought this was gone. Now it is here, ripped out of the pages, out of the notebooks here. Something about women as not being able to compete because of a lack of bodily horsepower is an old-fashioned Stone Age view. The qualities that define masculinity have changed into traits that are protective in recent times aligned ways, but Men seem to want to repress the woman in order to feel masculine, instead of getting up to date with evolution of women as independent from men, not needing men as providers, but wanting masculine traits that are focused on values and a cooperation of equality along with shared values and interests. A masculine trait is to be able to focus on matters, leaving out immature judgmental attitudes, leaving out pride, only focusing on the matter in question, putting the ego aside, and all types of attitudes that blur the matter in question, like armies do at war, standing together as a team, not leaving someone to bleed to death because of petite personal dislikes, also forgetting the ego of someone fighting for greater purposes than flashing boobs, good looks, or vocabulary, intellect, or something not important in relation to the greater cause of masculine action. In the times we live, there are and have been for hundreds of years laws telling right from wrong. Therefore, the type of repression seen during the witch hunt and during times of war should have been only a distant memory of malfunctioning, beginning stages of civilization. When we still see the trend nowadays, violence caused by the lack of taking on responsibility, by the various appointed to maintain law and order, they've let us down for too long, which is punishable, waiting for corruption to vanish and things put into order in society. This is why there should be no need to having to fighting external manifested enemies in relation to law and order, as we should have public institutions taking the proper action to put things into order. Laws are not negotiable. Historically, people have associated objects with projected powers of divine nature, like gemstones are said to possess powers of various character, that through keeping them close to your body in a necklace or in your pocket, have the radiation powers to provide the person with the qualities the stones amplify. Gemstones or other objects like coins, scarabs, crucifixes representing the divine, representing faith, heart-shaped objects representing love, can through your belief in their powers become almost magical. When you vitalize inside you an ancient type of primordial force that is vitalized mentally as a state of open-mindedness to the sensation of the silent sound of the universe and its totality of mystery and gigantic breadth in comparison to our own little spot on our tiny planet in the universe. Some people seem to believe that human beings have a blueprint or a light shining specifically for them in the universe. If that is true, there might be a creature with a tail, fur, and sensory horns, maybe sharp teeth, roaring, unable to speak any language, that Earth is the light that shines for in the universe. We must put aside human grandiose emotions and believe and understand that within the universe there is an invisible force of creation, the breath of God that according to the Bible was a part of the creation of life, and that what is physical has an existence of its own that has the right to exist with the same type of respect that every human being, every one of us expect. There is not any organism or any planet having some sort of function in relation to the universe that exists only for the benefit of other organisms or planets. The essential is invisible to the eye, not knowing if it's the right words from the Little Prince. When talking about using objects, imagining rituals can increase the sensation of the actuality of the object being irradiated with magical powers, amplifying and transferring feelings of having a divine support system. The objects become the link between oneself and the universal breath of creation, making it also a sense of vision and touch experience. Removing the entire responsibility, so to speak, from a matter of visualizing within the brain, which is rather difficult to hold on to, a fleeting sensation that is called visualizing, but also daydreaming and dreaming life away. It is important to be active in reaching your goals. If you just sit and wait, expecting to be able to visualize for opportunities to knock on the door, we know that that is not how to achieve anything. What underlines the factuality of this statement is when you observe successful business people. Indians used totem poles possessing powers. Animals have been said to possess powers that, when consumed, being powers contained by the consumer. Scarabees during pyramidal times, rituals to provide plants with rain, to grow, prayers, folded hands, to achieve a connection with God, holy water for baptism, or to drive out evil forces, pendulums to predict the future, divine swords, fertility rituals, the halo as a symbol not of power in a modern understanding of the word. The Egyptian, the key of life, various methods used as links between yourself and the universe, the divine.